Dear colleagues, as real SCO officials, we should start on time at 4:45 sharp. I would like to remind you that in 2 weeks' time, on the 15th of June, we'll have another anniversary of our wonderful organization. I shall remind you that we were born back in 2001, and we were set up to ensure regional security. Life continues. Life makes it necessary for us to move toward each other and accommodate each other's requests, and we are glad that the economic component is quite important, is getting even more important in the SCO activities. Allow me to introduce to you the panelists of our session. I believe that you anticipate how important these speakers are, quite a stellar team, and the discussion is going to be quite interesting. I would like to start by introducing Mr. Rashid Alimov, Secretary General of the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation, who has come here straight from Beijing. Mr. Alexei Gruzdev, Deputy Minister of Economic Development of the Russian Federation, quite recently our trade representative to China. He speaks Chinese brilliantly, so we pin our greatest hopes on Mr. Gruzdev and on the development of SCO. Ms. Veronika Nikishina in Russia. Everyone knows her, and I don't need to introduce her. Any person who has been one way or another related to the Eurasian Economic Union knows her. Now she's member of the board, master in charge of Trade Eurasian Economic Commission, Mr. Hakimov, Bakhtiar Hakimov, the legend of the SCO. Mr. Zinli. Mr. Zinli. He will choose the language he is going to use, either Chinese or Russian. We are ready for everything. The Institute for Economic Comparative Studies of Shanghai Institute for International Studies. Mr. Evgeny Vinokurov, Director of the Center for Integration Studies of the Eurasian Development Bank, one of the leading banks that connects all our financial relations. Mr. Mahmoud Vaizi, Minister for Communicative Technologies of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Tafail Ahmed, Minister for Commerce of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. We have a lot of distinguished guests here. There will be other speakers. I will introduce them as they join our conversation. Without further ado, I would like to ask our distinguished guest, Mr. Rashid Alimov, and this is for a very simple reason. In a couple of days in Astana, there will be important events related to the SCO. Above all, we are expecting the accession of two major players, India and Pakistan. On the other hand, the importance of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is growing to such an extent that here in the Russian Federation we consider it to be one of the most important international structures developing regional cooperation. What's in store for us? What are the plans? What is the future of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? These are the questions I would like our guests to address. Rashid Alimov, you have the floor. Thank you very much. I'm deeply touched by this introduction and this attention at St. Petersburg Economic Forum. I would like to thank the organizers that our discussion on the SCO and the prospects for developing cooperation is becoming traditional. I'm grateful for this opportunity to address you. I'm very grateful to each and everyone for joining us here. I would like to, I'm also impressed by the high level of speakers represented here. This is a venue which makes it possible for us to exchange opinions on what is in store for the SCO in the near future. As we understand, on the 8th and 9th of June in the city of Astana, a new summit of the SCO will start, which is even now labeled a historic one, and this is not a coincidence. We are on the threshold of admitting two authoritative, powerful, and very respectful and responsible countries of South Asia. I'm referring to India and Pakistan. We've been trying to achieve that for a long time. 12 years ago, they received the observer status in Astana at one of the SCO summits. 12 years later, they're going to join us as full-fledged members. We expect that after the SCO summit in Astana, 8 member states will be united by a common idea of joint progressive development, which is a key target of our interaction among the SCO member states. I would like to draw your attention to several aspects. First and foremost, out of a regional forum focused primarily on Central Asia, the SCO will effectively turn into a transcontinental organization, which will be in charge of a territory from the Arctic to the Indian Ocean, and on the one hand, and from Chinese Lanyungan, a small town, to the city of Kaliningrad in the west. If we imagine the map, the span of the organization, we will understand what a huge landmass will be covered by the SCO and will bring together 43 or 44% of the world's population. Naturally, this is a very important and powerful organization, and I would like to notice that we're not talking about just people. 70% of the population are below 50 years old, which means that we're talking about economically active population. Experts say that the growth indicators of the SCO countries bear witness to the growing dynamics and the aggregate of the VNP of the as far as purchase parity is concerned, will amount to $35 trillion. Another aspect is the economic interconnectedness. Above all, it is determined by the geographic proximity, as well as by the agreements and arrangements existing within the SCO, and the involvement of India and Pakistan with their powerful economies and very important contribution to the global economy will give additional impetus to this interconnectedness and interaction. The SCO territory will become the core of the Eurasian continent because the organization is in the very center of the unfolding economic initiatives. One of those is very familiar to you. This is something that's already been voiced. One Belt, One Road, and the implementation of the strategy was discussed at the recent International Cooperation Forum in Beijing, and virtually all the leaders of the SCO members participated in that. Secondly, the integration processes within the Eurasian Economic Union, and of course the opening up prospects for fostering a big Eurasian space, major Eurasian space. If we take a close look at the ongoing processes, we will see that right before our eyes, though this may take a lot of time, but in effect we see the establishment of a single space in Eurasia. It aims at more intensive cooperation on a range of issues. At the same time, it should be admitted that some processes are going on simultaneously. They are not intertwined, yet we believe this can be explained by common goals and tasks. One example that I would like to give, quite a fresh one and a very important one. Last week we conducted an organizational meeting at the level of Deputy Ministers for Transportation related to the implementation of the agreement on the SCO members on creating favorable conditions for international automobile transportation. We've been working on this for 8 years with the support of SCO. Its peculiar feature consists in the fact that this arrangement, this agreement works and will work not only for the SCO member states, but also for those who will be willing to join it. India and Pakistan, even without being members of the SCO yet, have adopted that document and have virtually become a party to the agreement. Secondly, we have an address from the government of Belarus to join this agreement. Thirdly, interest is shown by Turkmenistan. We transferred the package of documents to them. Fourthly, ASEAN member states show considerable interest in this document, which is clear along all the 6 routes. The freight car will be able to move possessing only one pass of the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation. So it's difficult to underestimate the importance of this agreement, because it goes far beyond our cooperation in the transportation area, and undoubtedly will be an important impetus for developing trade, not only trade. Undoubtedly, a new impetus will be given to the consistent, purposeful and progressive work aimed at developing a modern system of transportation highways. We've been working on setting up, on creating a roadmap for road construction, for developing road. That's a very important document, and we hope that in the near future, before 2021, we'll have a map which will make it possible for road users to transport goods, especially in Eurasia and in the adjacent areas, including to Europe and Southeast Asia. What are we talking about? The transcontinental character of the SCO will make it possible to view this entity as a link between the Asia-Pacific region and the Atlantic region, with the countries of Middle East and South Asia. And in this respect, considerable potential is attached, considerable importance is attached to developing our cooperation with ASEAN, and this is something we've been developing, we've been working on along with our ASEAN partners. And we believe the initiative launched by Vladimir Putin on creating a major Eurasian partnership is taking shape. At least this is what we have already seen. Its conceptualization, given the national strategies of each and every SCO member state, the implementation of integration projects within the Eurasian Economic Union, the promotion of the Chinese initiative One Belt, One Road, and measures aimed at strengthening cooperation between ASEAN and the SCO will in the near future contribute to the unification of economic processes and on the borders of Eurasia for the sake of mutually beneficial development and prosperity. In conclusion, I would like to remind you that on the 8th and the 9th of June, we'll open the SCO summit, which will set the goals for further development of our organization. I would also take note of the fact that after the summit, the Expo Astana 2017 will start its work, and for the first in its history, the SCO will be represented there as in a separate pavilion. Not a single international organization has its own pavilion. I'm referring to 350 square meters next to Chinese pavilion and India's pavilion. So if you enter one door forgetting to enter another one, that will be a mistake. So I invite all of you to Astana for you to be able to familiarize yourselves with our pavilion there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Alimov. Let's agree on the following. Questions to the speakers will be asked later on, probably at the end of our session. Now you have some time to digest everything and get ready with them, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of our session. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Alexei Gruziev, Deputy Minister of Economic Development of the Russian Federation, and say a few words about his general assessment of economic cooperation within the SCO and speak about the most promising areas. Let me emphasize it again, that today probably there is no other specialist like Mr. Gruziev out there. He knows everything. He knows the Ministry for Trade. He knows Asia. This is something he's been keen on all his life. Now he's in charge of foreign economic activity of the Russian Federation. This is virtually so. Thank you very much. Now I feel shy after such an introduction. Well, if I am to speak about the economic dimension, Mr. Alimov gave a very detailed account of the current state of the SCO's development, its prospects and benefits of the member states. Therefore, if you allow me, I would like to focus on individual aspects and give my evaluation and assessment of the achievements and what is to be still achieved, what will open up new prospects for developing further integration. Above all, as far as integration itself is concerned, it's no secret that today we witness new trends which are far from being rosy as far as trade relations are concerned. Over the years, we have been speaking about liberalization of markets and globalization, which give benefits in terms of development and establish points of growth. Now people start speaking about the need to protect national economies, that one should not forget about protectionism, and that's a certain challenge to the global trends I've mentioned, but yet that's an opportunity for regional integration to bring out all the existing advantages. What does regional integration bring? Unlike bilateral relations, it makes it possible to identify competitive advantages of each member state of the integration processes and make it possible to address those questions and problems that exist at the national level. But thanks to integration, this is done without trespassing on the interests of other member states. That's a venue for mutually beneficial balances, and the SCO, by its example, gives a good example. A broad spectrum of issues addressed within the SCO are not limited to economy only. We're talking about security and humanitarian.
And everything should be discussed in an open atmosphere. There should be introduced new dialogue mechanisms, minister meetings, and so on. In my view, it is leading to a situation when trade flourishes because lots of industries within one economy are sometimes competing with each other, and we have to take into account our reciprocal opportunities, and thus we will contribute to developing industrial cooperation, increasing value chains. We will be able to build transport channels to minimize the transport costs and to minimize production costs. So besides, it will allow us to use the potential of all the countries that participate in such products. Within each economy, there are its own priorities and priority partners. And this mutual effort will lead to some cumulative effect. There are lots of programs that set goals up to be achieved by 2020, and such programs usually include lots of events, and a lot of attention should be paid to developing small and medium-sized enterprises. And we should understand that minor and mid-sized businesses play a very important role in the economy. Investment should be worth billions of dollars, and the cumulative effect of transactions among small and mid-sized businesses can be compared to transactions made by major corporations. So we have to develop this infrastructure, and we have to think about forming a certain platform. This platform should be information-based and should be very pragmatic in its nature, aimed at establishing direct contact between the representatives of minor and small and mid-sized businesses. So we have some groundwork here, and we have to expand this groundwork to put it into reality in bigger projects. So we have to create transport infrastructure, especially in terms of building roads, motorways, because it will give an additional impetus to the development of industrial cooperation. Now we have 6 corridors, transport corridors, and along these corridors there can be built different industrial complexes, and it will expand the potential of the internal SCO market, because it is important to guide our enterprises and give them access to foreign markets as well. And it'll be a very important part of our integration project work. So very often a question is asked, and integration is quite a sensitive topic for the SCO, but do we really have multilateral projects? It's not so simple, because countries sometimes have very divergent interests, and not any initiative can become a reality. So it is really important, when forming the Business Council, for example, and is playing a very important role in the business agenda of the SCO. So it is really important within this council to create some data pool that can serve the interests of several participants of the organization. And one more point I would like to mention here, which is also important, and that is really very promising, I think. A recent initiative on the part of the Russian Federation to form the club of regional leaders within the SCO has been approved, and we think this decision is really important, because it will allow us to open new avenues of development and cooperation based on regional ties that are especially close, and it will really give our economies a new impetus, and it will facilitate the flows of capital and goods. Services are also very important because they are one of the main driving forces of economic growth. IT, digital technologies, and so on, e-commerce, for example. And speaking of investment cooperation and interaction, it has lots of prospects within the framework of the Eurasian Partnership Project. And to make it a success, the countries should be committed to speaking openly about the barriers that exist in trade, investment, and become constraints to our mutual progress. And the countries should speak about how to eliminate such barriers, but perhaps this is a topic for a new meeting. So thank you. Thank you very much, Alexey Vladimirovich. But actually, you have anticipated my next question, that goes to Veronika Olegovna. Perhaps I will take the liberty to say that all the business community that are part of the Eurasian Union are looking up to you as the minister and the key player in these processes. You are our future, if I may say so. So can you tell us about our prospects? You know, I'm really flattered to hear that, and it makes me quite shy. So what I would like to say is that the prospects of this Eurasian partnership that we're talking about are quite interesting. So on the one hand, not all the participants that are part of this Eurasian partnership project are not members to the SCO, and so perhaps they don't have a full-fledged right to speak and discuss the matters within the SCO, but it does not necessarily mean that we have nothing to offer as a positive agenda. So along with integration, we can see in the Asian space lots of various economic initiatives, and on the one hand we welcome such initiatives, and on the other hand we should note that there is such a term as spaghetti, because such initiatives sometimes run counter to each other instead of cooperating with each other. And so we should make such initiatives supplementary and intertwined, and that's what we can do within our Eurasian space. So how do we answer this question? Speaking about our suggestions for the development of the Eurasian space. So first, we can create new models of cooperation with our partners. And I'm not speaking about the Technoshores agreement. What I mean is that in any specific case, there should be its own mutually beneficial model and pattern of arrangements and agreements that will favor everybody. On the one hand, we have China that is initiating FTAs, and on the other hand, it does not necessarily mean that as a Eurasian economic partnership, we have nothing to say when it comes to shaping to set the rules of the game. So we should reach such an agreement of economic cooperation with China where and by which we can shape a set of disciplines that can be called in some way some new version of WTO. So because we're speaking about disciplines that we never had before, and it's one model of building and constructing, making components of our future together. For example, Iran. Mr. Vaizi, who is one of the panelists here, has been to a very fruitful meeting of ours, and he can say, I think, that we have shaped our own model of integration of the Eurasian Union and Iran that is completely new. This is a novelty. That is going to be a provisional agreement about trade in goods. And that means that both the parties here have all the commitment to make this agreement a reality. For us, it's more than words. To us, it means the implementation and the realization of our trade potential. I always say that to me and to my colleagues, agreements on preferences or free trade agreements, it's just one of the instruments of supporting the exports in a systemic way. Thus, we are creating a more competitive environment for the goods that can enter our markets, especially when it comes to decreasing customs duties. If we speak about our agreements with Singapore, we are discussing a free trade agreement with it. It's not some fashionable trend to us. It's more about what we will have in reality, because our agreement will be based not on liberalization of trade, but on the new conditions for investment and trade, because Singapore is especially important to us in these areas. Egypt, for example, has a completely different model and format based on new approaches to creating value chains. So in Egypt, there are industrial zones that are specialized in producing Egyptian goods that will afterwards be entered into the markets of the countries with which Egypt has FTA agreements. India, for example. It is really a major partner of ours. Our day-to-day started with a business breakfast with our Indian counterparts, where both the representatives of governmental agencies and business communities of Russia and India were present, and the two sides confirmed our commitment to implementing our FTA agreements. And this is what can bring us new competitive advantages in terms of shaping a new Eurasian space. So in each individual case, in other words, we're trying to come up with a new model, completely new model of interaction, and this model is aimed at creating a true partnership with our partners. So our arrangements are based on the technical tasks that the business community gives us. Victor Christianko is the chief of the Business Council of the European Union, is our source of this information, so he gives us these ideas, and so he tries to give us the real information about what is going on the ground. And so we try to converge this way the interests of the governmental structures and the business community. Thank you very much. So thank you. I have to assure you that we are your best partners in the business community. Now I'm giving the floor to Bakhtiyar Hakimov, who is going to speak about the Eurasian space and its prospects. The previous speakers have made my task easier because they have given the key elements of the situation, of the economic situation in the SCO, the prospects of integration processes, And Rashid has also told us about the benchmarks of the policy within the SCO. I would like to start with a very simple thing. And this is some kind of adage, some kind of theory that does not need proving. Within the SCO, cooperation with the SCO is one of the major priorities of the Russian Federation. We proceed from the fact that this organization, that is very unique and young, has very serious prospects in the future, and we have to deal with it in a very serious way. Just a few words about what Vladimir Ivanovich has said in his opening statement. Yes, we have been focused more on security and political issues. This focus is still present given the situation within the region. Security and politics are going to be the key elements of our activities. But at the same time, I would like to remind you of the SCO Charter that lays down the tasks for economic cooperation of integration into the world economy. One more goal that has also been set is to create favorable conditions for trade and investment to achieve the goal of freedom of goods, investment and capital. So this is what an FTA is aimed at. And this last topic has been something that we have been dealing with recently. I would like to remind of the meeting of the heads of cabinets in 2014, where the discussions were focused on this very seriously. So then this discussion was continued last year, in 2015 in Guangzhou and 2016 in Bishkek. Of course, this is not the closest prospect because all our partners are moving at different paces, but still I have to say that we have this task to be accomplished. Of course, we think that SCO is a multi-format and unique organization, as the strategy of the development of the SCO by 2025 says economy should be a priority avenue of development and a pillar, cornerstone for the everyday activities of the organization. At the same time, this document says in a very clear way that the SCO is never going to become an integration entity and is never going to create some supranational structures. And so this approach allows us to say that the SCO can be used to implement this far-reaching and long-term initiative, and it's promising and long-term not because the Russian president says so, but because it's become a result of the analysis of the processes that we see today. I mean, first of all, the big Eurasian partnership.
In the mid-1980s, the USSR proposed an initiative to establish a space from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. This is a political idea. Yesterday, within this forum, there was a conference related to setting up a space of cooperation from Lisbon to Vladivostok. This is something that is discussed at various foreign meetings, including with our European counterparts. In his address to the Federal Assembly, Mr. Putin, on the 3rd of November 2015, proposed an idea that was formulated in a very concise way. We should form a broad partnership with the participation of countries of the Eurasian Economic Union and the SCO, and an association of Southeast Asia. This initiative was further developed in July 2016. In his address at the St. Petersburg International Forum and in September 2016 in his presentation in the Far Eastern Economic Forum. At the initial stage, we are to focus, for instance, on establishing unified standards for technical regulation for industrial and agricultural goods. We should think at the initial stage to remove barriers to trade, stimulate production chains in regions, and so on. As these initiatives has been taking shape, we have been simultaneously developing cooperation with other partners, above all with the People's Republic of China. I would like to recall the joint initiative enshrined in the joint statement of the 5th of May 2015 on the interface of the development of the Eurasian Economic Union and the Silk Road, I'm sorry. Then President Putin and Xi Jinping agreed to cooperate in promoting the initiative of major Eurasian cooperation. At the same time, the Chinese leader spoke of the need to bring together Chinese initiatives, see Silk Road of the 21st century and Silk Road into one initiative, one road, one belt, one road. So such initiatives need merging to be able to form a unified concept. In this context, the Russian Federation has actively supported to convene a forum, One Belt, One Road in Beijing this May. I'm not going to speak in detail on the outcome of this major and very important meeting. I would like to remind you of the key ideas that were voiced at the opening ceremony by the Russian President. In welcoming the initiative One Belt, One Road, Mr. Putin emphasized that the interface of integration projects within the Eurasian Economic Union and One Belt, One Road, including our initiative of a North Sea Way, will lead to a new configuration of transport infrastructure in Eurasia. This led to a far-reaching proposal that we could bring together or unite all those initiatives with the participations, above all, of Europe and Asia, based on the existing integration or multilateral associations that could get involved in promoting the initiative. Naturally, we cannot do without the participation of the European Union. In this context, an interesting idea was voiced in Beijing by the Czech President, Miloš Zeman. He noted in particular that, in his view, one should set up a committee or a steering committee promoting the idea of uniting all national strategies and integration multilateral initiatives. the participants, he believed that China and Russia were the natural participants in such processes, and at the same time he mentioned the European Union. If this plan takes off, then we'll have a unique opportunity. Why can the SCO become a key platform? Mr. Alimov spoke of the potential the SCO enjoys these days. 24% of global GDP after its expansion. And secondly, as of now, we speak of the broad geographical span of this organization, 18 member states and observers, and dialogue partnership from Nepal in south and southeast to Cambodia and Turkey, and Belarus. In this context, we believe that the SCO and the idea of a major Eurasian partnership naturally proves that the SCO platform should be broadened, and the Russian Federation sees Iran as its natural partner in this respect, as well as other states that would show interest in this and would satisfy the criteria that we have for SCO members. Thank you. Our foreign ministry can set such tasks, such goals, that it's difficult to comment on them. Thank you very much for your substantive intervention. We have a Chinese guest who specializes in One Belt, One Road. Say a few words about One Belt, One Road, please. Explain it to us. Thank you. One Belt, One Road. Back in 2013, Xi Jinping announced that initiative in Kazakhstan, and in October, a month later, I wrote a report on One Belt, One Road initiative, explaining this initiative. What's its main idea? What is it all about? In that report, I wrote that we should focus on transportation. That's the most important thing. Without transport, nothing will happen. Therefore, transportation and transport, the construction of infrastructure and communication are most important. I also emphasize that Russia occupies a very important role. It has a very important role to play, because without the Russian Federation, One Belt, One Road wouldn't be possible. And I came up with a proposal that Russia should be invited. Then we met with Mr. Yakunin. He was against that initiative because One Belt, One Road initiative would be a competitor for Russia. I explained it to him that the strategy in China of the northeast is being actively promoted, and in Russia implements the strategy of developing the Russian Far East. Two strategies are separated by one river only. Why can't we unite and join our efforts? If we join two strategies of development, then Russia would definitely play an important role. And this is what we discussed with Mr. Yakunin. After this emerged the concept of Eurasian belt of development, which was joined by the Silk Road. So this is how we struck the agreement. He made a presentation. He presented his report to Vladimir Putin, and several weeks later, during the meeting in Sochi between Putin and Xi Jinping, they agreed to build, to connect the Russian railways with One Belt, One Road initiative, and Xi Jinping, Putin, and the President of Mongolia agreed on establishing an economic corridor. One Belt, One Road is not just one project. We're speaking about a number of avenues of development here. As Vladimir Putin rightly said, the Eurasian Union, the SCO, One Belt, One Road, and ASEAN would become possible and lead to a common economic space in the whole of Eurasia. Therefore, China was the first to adopt this concept last year by signing an agreement, a joint declaration that notes that Russia and China are in favor of establishing a pan-Eurasian partnership. So, what will become of this Eurasian cooperation? I believe that there should be some certain interface. That's the word I like. And as far as One Belt, One Road is concerned, I think it's an important initiative, and the SCO has 6 members at the moment. In a week there will be 8 member states, and if we have 6 members, then observer countries, dialogue partners, there will be negotiations on an FTA. I believe this is a very promising area of cooperation. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Vinokurov, a few words about the integration processes. What's your take on them? I would like to suggest my answers to 2 questions. The first one, What will the expansion of the SCO expansion bring? That will happen in a week. And secondly, what should be the institutional design of Greater Eurasia? We have analyzed the work of 60 regional organizations across the world. We have a necessary database, 60 organizations, up to 130 parameters we used to assess. We made certain calculations, and we identified a certain correlation between the expansion, membership expansion, and the lower efficiency and effectiveness. The correlation is 1.5. I believe that if the SCO has 6 members now, it will include 2 more, and which means that there will be a greater risk that the organization will become an organization with an active agenda into a discussion club. This was the risk faced and tackled by many organizations. It doesn't mean that the SCO should not be expanding. It just means that the expansion processes should be entered into with a clear understanding of the risk it bears to the effectiveness of the organization and with an understanding of how to minimize such risks. On the other hand, as far as security is concerned, the expansion of the organization can bring, at a certain stage, considerable benefits. We all understand that the future of Eurasia is far from being cloudless. It may face military conflicts both within the continent or from the outside, and the situation may develop in such a way that in the coming decades we'll face a situation when such an organization that brings together 3 major actors, China, India and Russia, alongside some of the regional balances, Pakistan and Kazakhstan above all, the very existence of such an organization will play a determining role in preventing a war. This will be a venue for a highest level diplomacy. This is where I see a positive aspect for expanding the SCO membership. As far as security is concerned, it has a very good track record. It started by demarcating borders between Russia and China, which was quite a challenging task, an uphill one. Now we have a regional anti-terrorist center, which deals in exchanging data, conducting military exercises. There is no other rival to this organization. In terms of economy, the SCO successes are quite limited. The FTO, the bank, the SCO bank, a major infrastructure project, I don't see much progress on these tracks. From my point of view, the real agenda of setting up Greater Eurasia should be dealt with at the level of bilateral relations, and even more at the level of the relations between the Eurasian Economic Union and individual Eurasian countries. Note the fact that in the world today there is no success story of an agreement between 2 integrational associations. Sometimes questions are raised to set up an FTA between ASEAN and the Eurasian Economic Union. There is no single success story. There were attempts between the EU-ASEAN and other examples. The thing is that it's very difficult to harmonize and coordinate individual countries' interests. There is a very important task of coordinating and harmonizing interests within the Eurasian Economic Union, and only then will it be possible to address such issues in bilateral talks with individual countries. It's very difficult. Therefore, we have opposing interests with certain Eurasian countries. We have certain agenda with Vietnam, a different one with Singapore, and it will be absolutely different with Thailand. Pragmatically, it will be easier to implement it through FTAs with these countries, and I believe this is where progress is possible in the coming 5 or 10 years, and through such bilateral agreements will it be possible for us to develop the fiber of Great Eurasia.
Thank you very much, Evgeny Georgievich. That's why we're here, to discuss what we have to and to express any assessments and opinions. That's why we have such formats and discussions to discuss the points that can sometimes raise somebody's concerns, to be honest. But you have poured some oil into the fire, and we have two more representatives of two countries that would like to be part of the SCO. First, I would like to give the floor to the Minister of Communication and Information Technology of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mahmoud Vaizi. Mr. Minister, could you share your view how Iran can be part of the SCO, what it can bring to Iran and the organization? So, in the name of God Almighty, I think that one of the major needs of in the world is multilateral cooperation, and of course, global cooperation is different from what we once used to have. And given the present situation in the world, we need to express our opinion and to have our say in forming our future. So the countries participating in multilateral cooperation organize regular meetings where they share experience and views, and it will lead to some improvement of such activities. I think these meetings are really fruitful. So nowadays it is impossible to speak about economy and trade without discussing the issue of security. Security is of major importance. And in general, I would say that shaping the SCO is dependent on ensuring security of the borders, of transport, trade, and other issues. But I think that the basis of the work of this organization with two new members will account for 45% of the world population, and I'm sure that for the world, for the global world, this topic is really important. And to enable us in Asia to have more space and more room to play a global role, a genuinely global role in international trade, we have to pay special attention to multilateral formats. And so the SCO is a very good platform for such activities, and the countries participating in these formats are also members of the Security Council of the UN, and they have the right to veto, and so they can express their opinion in international affairs. They have a very high status. Besides, it also embraces countries with a very good market. So markets are really important in the global world. And so I would like to say that perfecting the SCO is going in the right way. Of course, it's not a good idea to have over-expectations of this development process, because the organizations that can play some role in this process have not played it yet, on the one hand, but on the other hand, the organization itself needs more cooperation and interaction within the organization to become more consolidated. So the way that the organization has come is a very good journey, but I think that in the future we have to make even more efforts to make it really unique in the world. In terms of 4 components, Iran thinks the organization is important. The first component is that of stability and security. This is really important, especially nowadays when there are lots of factors of instability in different parts of the world and even in our region. And I think that what is really important is for us to be able to interact with the regional powers to ensure peace and stability for ourselves. The second component is that of trade and economy and market. And we really think that the SCO has a very good market. Iran has an 80 million market that can contribute to the SCO market. The third component is the issue of transport, because Iran, given the fact that in the past this country was part of the Silk Road, today Iran can become an important player in the integration process. What we're doing now in Chanbaha, we're creating a very big infrastructure, and I would like to invite those countries that are still on their way there to use this advantage. On the one hand, we join our way to Turkmenistan and the Commonwealth countries. So we're trying to bridge Azerbaijan and Europe through Russia. So this corridor can be of real importance. And my friends have already mentioned transport is of ultimate importance. And the last component is the energy issue. So in today's world, we're speaking about energy, oil and gas, and we should not neglect these issues. And oil-producing countries, for example, and energy consumer countries are intertwined through this topic of energy. And this can also be a very important aspect of the SCO activities. And what is also of utmost importance is that the members of the organizations can be self-reliant in energy terms. And I think that these 4 components are the keys to our success. And given these 4 components, I think that Iran can be a real contribution and a real asset within the organization. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a very good speech. And I would like to address the same question to the Trade Minister of Bangladesh. Mr. Minister, so what do you think about this?
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude for giving me an opportunity to participate in such a beautiful discussion as one of the panelists. And that subject is very important. Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the broad-based development of Eurasian Economic Union. I represent Bangladesh, and I impart this. You all know that it is said that 21st century will be the century for Asia-Pacific regions. In spite of having economic crisis all over the world, the Asia-Pacific region is doing excellent in their economic development. So far the GDP is concerned, and Bangladesh as a Asian country we are proud of saying this thing, that economically we are doing very good. You know that our country was liberated in 1971 under the dynamic leadership of the great leader, father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, sacrificing the lives of 3 million people. And the journey which has been started immediately after independence, virtually having nothing in our hand. But today, Bangladesh is one of the fastest economic growing countries of the world. Our GDP for the last few years, continuously it is more than 6%. Last year, it was 7.11%, and this year we hope that our GDP will be 7.24%, that we projected. And our export last year was $34.26 billion, and this year we targeted it will be $37 billion. Our reserve is also very good, more than $32 billion. So we got a destroyed country in 1971, but now we are moving forward toward the economic development. During the time of the election of 2008, our Honorable Prime Minister, who is the daughter of the founding father of the nation, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, set her vision, which is known as Vision 2021. 2021 will be the 50th anniversary of our independence. And we focused two things. More importantly, two things. One, to make Bangladesh a digital country, and to make it a middle income country in 2021. So digital Bangladesh is no more a dream now, it is a reality. And already on the basis of the World Bank criteria, we have entered into middle income group and hope to be a fully middle income country in 2021. As one of the panelists mentioned about the globalization, especially the first ministerial conference of WTO in Singapore, where I was at that time Minister of Commerce and Industry of Bangladesh, and with that capacity I was the spokesman of the least developed countries. So on behalf of the least developed countries, we proposed to have the duty-free, quota-free market access. And it was included in the para 14 of Ministerial Declaration in Singapore. And most of the developed countries awarded us duty-free, quota-free market access. So as I got an opportunity, I will also request the countries who did not award us duty-free, quota-free market access yet, including Russian Federation. We hope that we'll be very happy if we get duty-free, quota-free market access in the market of Russian Federation and other member states of Eurasia Economic Union. You'll be very happy to know that we are going to sign a memorandum of understanding with Eurasia Economic Commission so that we can play a very important role for trading among the member states. And we have decided to be an observer member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Firstly, we like to be observer, and secondly, we like to be a full member, as Pakistan and India became the observer, and now they are going to be the full member of the this Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So we will be appreciating Russian Federation to take the initiative so that we can also play our important role in this matter. So nowadays, globalization and integration is the order of the day. As a result of which, many countries, even bypassing WTO, they have become the members of regional or sub-regional cooperation. Consider the case of ASEAN, AFTA, SAFTA, BIMSTEC, and BCIM, of which Bangladesh is one of the members. Very recently, the AFTA meeting was held in Bangkok on 13th of January, and I represented Bangladesh, where we have decided that 10,000 tariff line will be considered either to make a lower rate of duty or to give duty-free market access. So that was the decision in that AFTA meeting. So we hope that as this St. Petersburg International Economic Forum meeting is going on, which is very important, and as I think Bangladesh, though at the present moment we are least developed country, but a time is coming when we are going to be, graduated to be a developing country. We are very happy that we get duty-free market access in the name of EBA, everything but arms, from European Union. And we are getting duty-free market access from Japan, China, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, member states of the European Union. So we hope that this Eurasia, member states belonging to Eurasian Economic Commission, and especially the Russian Federation, which is our very, very good friend, because we are extremely happy and grateful to Russian people and to the government. When it was Soviet Union, we used to get help and cooperation from them during the time of the liberation struggle, even when it started the reconstruction of our country after the independence. So we'll be very happy, and we are maintaining excellent relationship with the Russian Federation. Our Honorable Prime Minister visited Russia, and we became the member of the BRICS also, and our Honorable Prime Minister attended BRICS meeting in India very recently. So we hope that this, the discussion or these topics of Shanghai Organization, it will help us. And Bangladesh like to be a member of that. Firstly, an observer, secondly, a full member. So with this, I like to conclude, express my gratitude to all, and we hope that member states of Eurasia, including Russia,